Republicans in the Senate are now pushing for new legislation that affects millions of Americans financially, and there are many developments on the next relief bill. We have some news from lawmakers in Congress. Chuck Schumer is pushing to move forward with a $52 billion bill to boost semiconductor production to address the chip shortage. And according to a source familiar with the matter, key Republicans who would be needed to advance the plan are pumping the stakes. The source said Schumer is telling senators it could head to the floor as soon as next Tuesday, but Republican John Thune, a member of GOP leadership, has cast a doubt on that plan, warning he's not sure if Republicans would provide the 10 or so votes needed to break the filibuster. Senator Thune told reporters today, "We're at a point where no one knows what the final bill might look like or what kind of and where the votes are at. We know where the votes were last time, but that was a different time. And the bill will be a scaled back version of the larger competitive legislation. Republican leaders have previously said they'd be open to passing a narrow bill that focuses mainly on the issue of producing semiconductor chips, but Thune blamed Democrats for mishandling the chips legislation. The fight comes as the Biden administration has ramped up pressure on Congress to act on the chip shortage before the upcoming elections. And student loan forgiveness is one of Biden's top priorities. The Biden administration proposed wide-ranging changes to student loan forgiveness programs that would reduce the bureaucracy currently standing in the way of some borrowers having their debt canceled. The Education Secretary said in a statement this week, if a borrower qualifies for student loan relief, it shouldn't take mountains of paperwork or a law degree to obtain it. Student loan benefits also should not be hard to get, that borrowers never actually benefit from them. The proposed changes, which the Department of Education hopes to finalize later this year, will make it easier for those who already qualify for existing programs to get this relief. In the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which also allows government and nonprofit employees to have their loans forgiven after making 120 monthly payments, will also get an overhaul. Workers in eligible jobs must currently abide by strict rules like making the payment in full within 15 days of its due date. The new rules would eliminate that 15-day requirement. Officials have told reporters the regulations we propose would remove many of those barriers and help create a student loan forgiveness program that works better for borrowers. Biden announced 2 rounds of student loan forgiveness last month and about $12 million, mostly for students who attended for-profit colleges. The president has so far resisted calls from the progressive wing of his party to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt for every borrower. But the Washington Post reported in May that he is considering a smaller, more targeted cancellation of student debt. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took to Twitter to criticize the amount of debt that the Biden administration is targeting and how it intends to distribute it. She warned it may backfire on Biden by infuriating his opponents as well as borrowers who want more relief from crushing loans. She wrote that $10,000 in means-tested forgiveness is just enough to anger the people against it and the people who need forgiveness the most.
Kids get their blessings in a backpack. They take home their food, and that will be all they eat all weekend. This is the type of situation for which WIC and SNAP are critical, don't you think, Dr. Black?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. They certainly are critical.
Yeah. And I could go on at length about the American Rescue Plan, and I've defended it a number of times before this committee. My name's on it as the author, even though I didn't write one word of it. But it came through our committee, so it says Mr. Yarmouth on it, and I'm very proud of that. And I think we have to go back to that time, and because there's no question that there were incredible problems in the implementation of the American Rescue Plan. But what were we facing? We were facing a crisis that hit us almost spontaneously. Nobody saw it coming. All of a sudden, 20 million people are out of work. Businesses are closing right and left. The economy basically shut down. We faced, unfortunately, blame it on whoever, going back a long time, we were not prepared for a pandemic. So we're learning as we go along. People were justifiably critical, but at the time. But the fact is, we didn't know how bad it was going to be. We shut down everything. We didn't know that kids were less vulnerable, more vulnerable. But we knew that if they caught the disease, they would give it to their colleagues would take it home, and it would be disastrous. So when Mr. Gingrich says things like, we committed all this child abuse over the last 2 years, we did not commit child abuse. That's an absurd statement. Forgive me, Speaker Gingrich. we were trying to do the best we could to maintain the safety and health of our kids and our families. And in my particular state, and the comments have been made about unemployment. And yeah, there was a lot of money that went to people who probably didn't warrant it. In my state, unemployment applications went from about 200 a week to several thousand a week. That Department of Unemployment in Kentucky was not equipped to handle the deluge of unemployment applications that they were faced with. So yeah, they're trying to get money out the door. That's what we were all trying to do. Because we were facing an economy that was on the verge of collapse. So we were trying to get money to businesses. We were trying to get money to state and local governments. We were trying to shore up a sinking ship. And yeah, in those circumstances, which were unique, at least in my lifetime, we were doing the best we could. And hopefully we'll learn lessons about that. And one thing I will agree with Speaker Gingrich on, and some of my Republican colleagues, we rarely think about the implementation of the programs that we put into place. We need to be much better at that. And I stressed with the administration when we were trying to do the Build Back Better plan that
when the crisis first began, many people lost their jobs or saw their income take a notable hit. And many of those who didn't have savings quickly fell behind their bills, including their rent payments. Now that there's no longer an eviction moratorium in place, tenants who are behind on rent are desperate to get caught up to avoid losing their homes. But those who have yet to apply for federal rent relief funds may be out of luck. Unfortunately, that's not the case for many residents in the state of Connecticut. The state says it will continue to process existing applications for rent relief until it runs out of money. But those who don't have a pending application can no longer access the federal funding. And that doesn't mean all Connecticut residents who need help are out of luck. Residents of New Haven can turn to a separate program for aid, and those who qualify may be in line for the $12,000 in assistance. The city of New Haven is continuing to offer rental assistance through a Castle program. This program still has $213,000 in funding. According to a city spokesperson, those who apply for aid through this program can receive up to $12,000 to cover past due rent. But funds owned prior to March 2020 don't qualify for this incentive. Tenants who wish to apply for assistance through the Castle program must meet the following criteria. They must have an income that does not exceed 80% of the area's median income, and they must have proof of income, loss, or disruption during the crisis. So if you're a New Haven resident who is yet to financially recover from the financial blows of the crisis, don't worry, because you can still apply and receive some federal rent relief on time. Now, I definitely suggest applying for relief before funds run out, everybody. House Democrats have introduced multiple proposals aimed at sending direct payments to Americans to help cover high prices of gas. The plans have some similarities to the one that sent $1,400 stimulus checks to millions of people last year.